Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Josh tipped me off to an interesting story out of Boston from the Boston Herald. Joe Dwinell wrote it. And the district attorney vows to toss 74,000 criminal cases tied to a drug lab scandal. 74,000 criminal cases are going to get tossed because of a scandal at a drug testing laboratory. And this is crazy. The Suffolk DA is pledging to toss 74,000 criminal cases as the Hinton lab fiasco continues to lay waste to drug prosecutions and will cost the state of Massachusetts $30 million so far and possibly more down the road. And of course, it doesn't help that we can assume, I would think, that some of those criminal cases probably were valid. Okay? So the DA announced Monday she is launching the Hinton Lab Initiative to vacate cases linked to a now shuttered laboratory and what they call catastrophic failure of management. She pledged to dismiss Suffolk County drug convictions for any individual whose drug certification was done at that lab between May of 2003 and August of 2012. It's a 9-year period. 9 years. So if you had a conviction in those 9 years and the conviction included work done by this lab as part of your case, it's going to get thrown out. That's the lab where 2 chemists were convicted of botching samples in what has become the worst case of its kind in the nation's history. And this is the kind of thing where if you go to court, you're a defendant, you've been charged with a crime, and the state brings in laboratory technicians who testify that we tested this stuff and we do this for a living and we're chemists and we have expertise and knowledge. Jurors eat that stuff up. And you probably can't afford to hire your own experts to retest everything or to double check the work of the first lab. So people just assume that the labs know what they're talking about. So one of these people who is been convicted of botching samples raced through tests, falsifying evidence, according to prosecutors. The other was addicted to drugs, including the very drugs she was testing, and was actually using those drugs 10 to 12 times a day while working at the lab. So you have someone who is addicted to the stuff they're testing and is using it while running the tests, and it makes you wonder, where is she getting the stuff that she's using? Is that how she's testing it? The time has come to fully address the impact of systemic misconduct in the Hinton lab. It is never too late to rectify the injustice suffered by so many individuals. The DA is looking to come to a global resolution for drug cases from any analysis conducted at the Hinton lab between those dates I told you about, which is about 82,000 samples. More than 7,800 of those cases were already reviewed and thrown out with prejudice as part of a 2017 Supreme Judicial Court ruling. So when they throw it out with prejudice, it means it cannot be refiled. Okay, it's literally thrown out and it is gone, done, move on, forget about it, never happened. The DA said she's targeting some 74,800 Suffolk County lab certifications that were not reviewed, and they will be the subject of the proposed global resolution. Since one certification can be used for multiple defendants or one defendant can have multiple certifications, the precise number of defendants is still yet to be determined. So it's going to take some time to go through 74,800 cases from a 9-year period. To date, 35,000 drug convictions have been dismissed due to the scandals. And there have been fallout to other counties. It's not just happening in Suffolk County. Both of the people at the lab served time, but are now out. One of them spent 3 years in jail and was released in 2016. The other one was sentenced to a year and a half and got out in 2015. And both were part of a Netflix series that looked at the scandal. So generally speaking, if you find yourself the subject of a Netflix series that you didn't help make, you may want to rethink portions of what you've done with your life. Someday down the road, if they ever say, hey, Steve, Netflix, Colin. We want to do a series on Lehto's Law. I'd be great. But if I discovered that, oh, by the way, they've done a 9-part expose about you, and you didn't participate for some strange reason. Netflix, you say? Okay. The DA said 190,000 cases were handled at the Hinton lab during the time in question. And she said, we will convene a summit next month to begin identifying individual defendants, reviewing the cases, and determining next steps. A similar clean sweep of drug convictions was implemented at the Amherst lab, where one of these people worked starting in 2004. The combined scandals of these two technicians have resulted in tens of thousands of overturned convictions and have cost the Commonwealth approximately $30 million to date, the DA said, adding the time could have been better spent on unsolved homicides, interacting positively with youth in our communities, or proactively trying to disrupt violence. And this is a strange one because we're often critical of the legal system because of things that the police do, things that the courts do, things that the prosecutors do, things that the defendants do. And here we have lab technicians who are so callous about their work that they don't care what their results are going to do to people's lives. And so it's possible, I guess, that some of the lab results that they created probably could have been accurate. But then again, if one of these people was alleged to have been using 10 to 12 times a day during her work while doing the testing, as you can imagine, a defense attorney would have had a field day had they known that. Said, so you ran these tests on this day. How many times that day did you actually use some of the drugs that you were testing? So the fact that you have people who are in a laboratory someplace, this callous about the lives that they are affecting by doing their slipshod work is bizarre. It's crazy. And, we don't think about that as much as we think about the other players in the courtrooms. But this is a crazy one. And so we're going to be hearing about this for some time now. And the number of people affected by this, whether it's 74,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, it's a gigantic number. But again, it spans 9 years. 9 years. And there are some courts that are very, very busy handling certain kinds of cases. And so, there are courts, for instance, where they do split it, and the civil cases, the lawsuits, are heard by these judges, and the criminal cases are heard by these judges. That's quite common. So there's probably a few judges who heard quite a few of these cases. And it might be that these kinds of cases took up a big portion of their docket for a 9-year period. So think about this from the point of view of a judge. You're a judge, you're sitting on the bench, you're doing your job, you're in and you're out. Cases are coming in, jury's coming in, attorneys coming in, defendants coming in. You have a trial, somebody gets found guilty, they go off to prison or whatever. And you do that over and over again for a 9-year period. And then somebody comes forward and goes, oh, by the way, the lab that was doing all the testing in all those cases, unreliable to the point where their results have got to get thrown out. And I know a lot of people out there would say, but Steve, you know something? If you punch the clock and they pay you, who cares? It's not how I feel about it. If I was the judge, I'd be like, wait, I just wasted 9 years. 9 years trying these cases, litigating these cases for 9 years, and none of them count now? And I would look at that and say, yeah, that's 9 years of my professional life that you just wasted. I'd be ticked. I'd be ticked. So it's not just the people, the defendants who are tried. Don't get me wrong. They have the biggest gripe here. I'm willing to admit that. But there's other people as well. And it all goes back to two lab technicians. And look what they caused. So, crazy case. Josh sent it. Thanks a lot. Boston Herald. DA vows to toss 74,800 criminal cases tied to the drug lab scandal. And Joe Dwinell wrote it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Slow down and enjoy life. Otherwise, you may forget where you're going and why.